flick to link, a link to flick.
This story begins in 1985, when at age 22, I became the world chess champion after beating Anatoly Karpov. Early that year, I played what is called simultaneous exhibition against 32 of the world's best chess playing machines in Hamburg, Germany. I won all the games. And then it was not considered much of a surprise that I could beat 32 computers at the same time. To me, that was the golden age. Machines were weak, and my hair was strong. Just 12 years later, I was fighting for my life against just one computer in a match called by the cover of Newsweek, The Brain's Last Stand. No pressure. From mythology to science fiction, human versus machine has been often portrayed as a matter of life and death. John Henry, called the still driving man in a 19th century African-American folk legend, was pitted in a race against steam-powered hammer bashing a tunnel through a mountain of rock. John Henry's legend is a part of a long historical narrative pitting humanity versus technology. And this competitive rhetoric is standard now. We're in a race against the machines, in a fight or even in a war. Jobs are being killed off. People are being replaced as if they had vanished from the earth. It's enough to think that the movies like The Terminator or The Matrix are non-fiction. There are very few instances of an arena where the human body and mind can compete on equal terms with a computer or a robot. Actually, I wish there were a few more. Instead, it was my blessing and my curse to literally become the proverbial man in the man versus machine competition that everybody is still talking about. In the most famous human-machine competition since John Henry, I played 2 matches against the IBM supercomputer Deep Blue. Nobody remembers that I won the first match. In Philadelphia, before losing the rematch the following year in New York. But I guess that's fair. There is no day in history special calendar entry for all the people who failed to climb Mount Everest before Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay made it to the top. And in 1997, I was still the world champion. When chess computers finally came of age, I was Mount Everest, and Deep Blue reached the summit. I should say, of course, not that Deep Blue did it, but its human creators, Anand Tharaman, Campbell, Hon, Su, hats off to them. As always, machine's triumph was a human triumph, something we tend to forget when humans are surpassed by our own creations. Deep Blue was victorious. But was it intelligent? No. No, it wasn't. At least not in the way Alan Turing and other founders of computer science had hoped. It turned that chess could be crunched by brute force once hardware got fast enough and algorithms got smart enough. Although by the definition of the output, grandmaster level chess, Deep Blue was intelligent. But even at the incredible speed, 200 million positions per second, Deep Blue's method provided little of the dreamt of insight into the mysteries of human intelligence. Soon, machines will be taxi drivers and doctors and professors, but will they be intelligent, quote unquote? I would rather leave these definitions to the philosophers and to the dictionary. What does really matter is how we human feel about living and working with these machines. When I first met Deep Blue in 1996, in February, I had been the world champion for more than 10 years. And I had played 182 World Championship games and hundreds of games against other top players in other competitions. I knew what to expect from my opponents and what to expect from myself. I was used to measure their moves and to gauge their emotional state by watching their body language and looking at their eyes. And then I sat across the chessboard from Deep Blue. I immediately sensed something new, something unsettling. You might experience a similar feeling the first time you ride in Raven's car, or the first time your new competitor manager issues an order at work. But when I sat at that first game, I couldn't be sure what is this thing was capable of. Technology can advance in leaps, and IBM had invested heavily. I lost that game. And I couldn't help wondering, might it be invincible? Was my beloved game of chess over? These were human doubts, human fears, and the only thing I knew for sure, that my opponent, Deep Blue, had no such worries at all. I fought back after this devastating blow to win the first match, but the writing was on the wall. I eventually lost to the machine, but I didn't suffer the fate of John Henry, who won, but died with his hammer in his hand. It turned that the world of chess still wanted to have a human chess champion. And even today, when a free chess app on the latest mobile phone is stronger than Deep Blue, people are still playing chess. Even more than ever before. Doomsayers predicted that nobody would touch the game that could be conquered by the machine. And they were wrong, proven wrong. But doomsaying has always been a popular pastime when it comes to technology. I learned from my own experience is that we must face our fears if we want to get the most out of our technology. And we must conquer those fears if we want to get the best out of our humanity. While licking my wounds, I got a lot of inspiration from my battles against Deep Blue. As the old Russian saying goes, you can't beat them, join them. And I thought, what if I could play with a computer, together with a computer at my side, combining our strengths? Human intuition plus machine's calculation. Human strategy, machine tactic. Human experience, machine's memory. Could it be the perfect game ever played? My idea came to life in 1998 under the name of Advanced Chess when I played this human plus machine competition against another elite player. But in this first experiment, we both failed to combine human and machine skills effectively. Advanced Chess found its home on the internet. And in 2005, a so-called freestyle chess tournament produced a revelation. team of grandmasters and top machines participated. But the winners were not grandmasters, not a supercomputer. The winners were a pair of amateur American chess players operating 3 ordinary PCs at the same time. Their skill of coaching their machines effectively counteracted the superior chess knowledge of their grandmaster opponents and much greater computational power of others. And I reached this formulation. A weak human player plus a machine plus a beta process is superior to a very powerful machine alone, but more remarkably, is superior to a strong human player plus machine and an inferior process. This convinced me that we would need better interfaces to help us coach our machines towards more useful intelligence. Human plus machine isn't the future, it's present. Everybody has used online translation to get the gist of a news article from a foreign newspaper, knowing it's far from perfect. Then we use our human experience to make sense out of that, and then machine learns from our corrections. This model is spreading in investing, medical diagnosis, security analysis. The machine crunches data, calculates probabilities, gets 80% of the way, 90%, making it easier for analysis and decision-making of the human part. But you are not going to send your kids to school in self-driving car with 90% accuracy, even with 99%. So we need to leap forward to add a few more crucial decimal places. 20 years after my match with Deep Blue, second match, this sensational, the brain's last stand headline has become commonplace as intelligent machines move in every sector, seemingly every day. But unlike in the past, when machines replaced farm animals, manual labor, now they're coming after people with college degree and political influence. And as someone who thought machines are lost, I'm here to tell you this is excellent, excellent news. Eventually, every profession will have to feel this pressure, or else it will mean humanity has ceased to make progress. We don't get to choose when and where technological progress stops. We cannot slow down. In fact, we have to speed up. Our technology excels at removing difficulties and uncertainties from our lives. And so we must seek out ever more difficult, ever more uncertain challenges. Machines have calculations. We have understanding. Machines have instructions. We have purpose. Machines have objectivity. We have passion. We should not worry about what our machines can do today. Instead, we should worry about what they still cannot do today, because we will need the help of the new intelligent machines to turn our grandest dreams into reality. And if we fail, it's not because our machines are too intelligent or not intelligent enough. If we fail, it's because we grew complacent and limited our ambitions. Our humanity is not defined by any skill, like swinging a hammer or even playing chess. There is one thing only human can do. That's dream. So, let us dream big. Thank you.
Flink to link, a link to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Visit our website. News review from BBC Learning English. Hello and welcome to News Review, the program where we show you how to use the language from the latest news stories in your everyday English. I'm Dan, and joining me today is Catherine. Hi, Catherine.
Hi, Dan.
What's the story?
Today's story, Dan, is about a natural disaster in the United States.
Natural disaster in the United States. Okay, let's hear more from this BBC World Service Bulletin.
Officials in Texas estimate that around 450,000 people will need help because of flooding caused by Tropical Storm Harvey. President Donald Trump has promised swift action to provide federal government assistance for the states affected by the storm. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, said all 12,000 members of the state National Guard would be deployed. A record amount of rain has fallen on the city of Houston.
So, a huge storm has caused a lot of destruction and disruption, a lot of flooding, a lot of people are homeless, so it's a very serious situation in America right now.
I see, and you've been looking around at the latest headlines to find 3 words or expressions which we need to understand and talk about this story.
I have, and we have death toll, obliterate, and havoc.
Death toll, obliterate, and havoc. Okay, can we have your first headline, please?
We can. So if we go straight to the Australian Financial Review, the headline is Hurricane Harvey death toll climbs as Donald Trump promises billions quickly.
Death toll, the number of dead people due to an incident. Okay, now I'm confused, forgive me, but I thought toll was something to do with roads.
You're not wrong, Dan. Toll is something to do with roads. So if you're driving along and you come to a big barrier in the road and you have to pay some money to use the next stretch of road, that barrier is called a toll gate. The money you pay is a toll, and the road is a toll road. And the pronunciation can be toll or toll. It's kind of somewhere in the middle. And it's a tax or a payment to do something. So in terms of a death toll, if you think of the tax that this hurricane has demanded, the payment that humanity makes to this hurricane, think of it that way. It's a payment made. The other way we use toll is to count as well. So the number is important here. The amount of money or the amount of death is also known as a toll.
So can I use death toll every day? Is it kind of an everyday piece of language?
It's a very common piece of English, but in spoken English you'd probably say the number of people who died would be a more sort of natural thing to say.
I see, because death toll is quite newsy and short.
It's short, it's dramatic, and you see it mostly in written English, especially in newspaper headlines, because it's short and dramatic. Yeah.
I see. And don't we have to use the, not a?
We do, yes. So the death toll is, or the death toll was, or the death toll stands at, and then you say the number.
Can we move on to our second headline now, please?
We can, and we're now going to the Washington Post. The headline this time is Rains from Harvey obliterate records, flood disaster to expand.
Obliterate, completely destroy. Okay, what can you tell me about that?
Okay, so obliterate comes from, it has a Latin origin, and its literal meaning from the Latin interpretation is cause to disappear. So the idea of obliterate as a verb or obliteration as a noun means complete destruction, often to the extent where you can't find any pieces of what was once there. So think of really bad disasters like earthquakes, floods, war, the mudslide that happened recently. It's where there's so much damage and destruction, often nothing's left.
I see. So natural disasters and war, but we can also use it for sports.
Interestingly, we can, yes. And it's a very sort of, the meaning transfers quite well because obliterated is a really kind of strong, dramatic word. So if you imagine a match where one team really wins massively over the other team, like the World Cup thing with
Brazil and Germany.
Yeah. Huge, horrible score, wasn't it? Poor Brazil. They were obliterated, unfortunately.
All right, well, before we obliterate our audience any further with this information, let's go to our third headline.
Okay, so the Alaska Dispatch News. Texas officials say at least 9 dead amid Harvey havoc. And we've got a nice little double H there, Harvey havoc. That device is called alliteration, where newspaper headlines start words with the same letter for dramatic effect. So Harvey havoc.
Havoc, meaning chaos. This comes from Old French, doesn't it?
It does, yes, and it's another uncountable noun. So we don't say a havoc, we just say havoc. And it's a nice short word, newspapers like it. It means chaos, distraction, panic, confusion. Again, really kind of this is describing a very, very difficult and disastrous situation.
Okay, and it's just because it's because it's an uncountable noun, I need a verb. What can I combine it with?
And we often say something can cause havoc. We say often a good collocation is the word wreak. Wreak is spelled W-R-E-A-K, and if you wreak havoc or something wreaks havoc, it causes a lot of destruction. And then you can also say play havoc, which is a slightly more everyday use of the word. If something plays havoc with something else, it causes a lot of problems, but not in a massively disastrous way, more of an everyday use of the word. So.
I see. Like the snow on British transport.
Oh, snow.
It's terrible, isn't it?
It plays havoc. Snow plays havoc with transport.
I would even go so far as to say it wreaks havoc with our transport system.
Most years it does, yes. I know the feeling.
So before we recap our vocabulary, let's go to our Facebook challenge. Now, this week we said nearly 450,000 people will need help in Texas, where tropical storm Harvey has forced many to leave their homes. Which of these words does not always mean forced to leave? Is it A, evacuate, B, evict, or C, exile? Catherine, how did they do?
They did very well as always, Dan. There was some discussion on forced or not forced, but generally, let's go to a comment by Jenny Huang, who said, evacuate, remove someone from a place of danger to a safer place. So the correct answer is evacuate. Well done, Nikki Kostopoulou, Shadi Jarmusch and Lukman, who all got the same answer, said evacuate, same as everybody else. Sometimes you can forcibly evacuate people, but generally evacuate is for safety's sake.
Thank you very much. And could you please recap our vocabulary for us?
I can. We had death toll, the number of dead people due to an incident. Obliterate, completely destroy. Havoc, meaning chaos.
Thank you. Now, if you'd like to test yourself on today's vocabulary, there is a quiz that you can take on our website, bbclearningenglish.com, where you'll find all sorts of amazing videos and other pieces of information to help you study English. Thank you very much for joining us, and goodbye.
Goodbye.
News Review from BBC Learning English.
This is a download from BBC Learning English. To find out more, visit our website.
News Review from BBC.
It was early in the evening. William Shakespeare is at home. He's expecting a visit from his actor friend, Robert Harley.
evening, Mr. Shakespeare. Welcome. Welcome, Robert. Come in.
Good evening, Mr. Harley.
Miss Shakespeare? I'm sorry I'm late. I was out horse riding. It was wonderful. So fast. So exciting. The wild goose chase. Take care when you race that way, young Robert. We don't want to spoil those good looks of yours.
Why is it called a wild goose chase? It's a horse race. They're not chasing geese.
Dear daughter, a wild goose chase is indeed a kind of horse race. The riders have to follow one horse, keeping up with him wherever he goes, just as wild geese follow the leader when they fly.
Oh! I expect you kept up with him very well, Robert.
Thank you, daughter. Now to the play. Romeo and Juliet. Robert, you are playing Mercutio, Romeo's best friend. In this scene, there is a different kind of wild goose chase. This chase is all about words and jokes. Mercutio and Romeo are competing with each other, each of them trying to tell the cleverest and funniest jokes. A competition of intelligence, of wits, and quick thinking.
Mercutio will win, won't he? He is handsome and clever.
Mercutio is indeed quick-witted, but Romeo is better, much better, and Mercutio knows it. So he gives up this wild goose chase before it even starts, saying, "Nay, if thy wits run the wild goose chase..." "Nay, if thy wits run the wild goose chase, I have done, for thou hast more of the wild goose in one of thy wits than, I am sure, I have in my whole 5.
We'll leave them there for now. Romeo and Juliet is a play about young love, but it also has lots of fighting, with both weapons and words. Here, Shakespeare compares Romeo and Mercutio's dueling with words to a wild and dangerous horse race, called a wild goose chase. In modern English, a wild goose chase isn't about horses or geese. It describes a situation where you foolishly chase after something that is impossible to get or doesn't exist at all. Take US writer Bryant McGill, who said,
"Endless consumerism sends us on a wild goose chase for happiness through materialism.
We looked for the restaurant for hours, but it was a wild goose chase. Turned out that it closed down years ago."
So, no wild goose chase for Mercutio.
You could chase me though, Robert.